This week on the video version of the business of tech, employment, job participation, and even numbers about cursing, Google's shadow IT move, just how low is multi-factor authentication adoption, researchers talk about COBOL, technology alone isn't enough for customers and what the data tells us, and data from trouble tickets. All this and more, hit those like and subscribe buttons, and here are this week's stories. CompTIA is reporting that tech industry employment is up by just over 24,000 workers in January. That's the 14th consecutive month of tech employment growth. The January rate of tech job postings continues to track above the 12-month average by approximately 11.2%. Because in the larger context, the percentage of people working or looking for jobs reached its largest point since before the pandemic. That's the labor force participation rate at 62.2% for January, higher than previously thought. So that people not participating problem? Not so much. If you sense the workplace is getting less formal, there's data to back that up. In reviewing conference call transcripts, Sentio found that swearing was up 60% in 2021. And in the analysis by Inc., that isn't necessarily bad, as it can foster relationships and honesty. In a report released by Pro Unlimited, who make workforce management software, researchers compared approaches across Europe with those in the US. And turns out the Europeans are taking a simple approach to address quit rates, increasing pay and offering better benefits. IT talent has seen an average 12% pay increase across all 5 nations covered in the report. Each country has also customized their approach, such as Belgian employers have started offering private health insurance, Dutch firms have added education stipends and reduced work hours to job postings, and Irish companies have begun offering 4-day work weeks. Because superficial perks are losing their luster. Quoting ZDNet, according to a survey of 576 employees by workforce management platform Robin, superficial perks like ping pong tables and free cold brew still have their appeal in the new hybrid workplace, but they're no longer as valuable to workers as they once were. Instead, employees expect businesses to support both their chosen working style and their physical and mental well-being, whether that's more time off, health and wellness perks, or financial stipends for things like broadband and home working equipment. That survey highlights that 65% of employees said their employer hadn't created any new perks since the pandemic, and 23% said their company perks had been wiped out. And remember, per PwC's Pulse survey last week, more than 3/4 of business leaders at 77% say talent attraction and retention is key for growth, and less than 1/3, 31% of executives, expect easier talent conditions in 2022. And in new data from Alix Partners, they worry about keeping their jobs too. 72% of CEOs fear losing their positions. Now, why do we care? Need is up, as evidenced by job postings. Competition for those people cannot be explained away by those not participating. The old superficial perks don't work. And the Europeans are saying the solution is pay increases, all amidst pressures to keep those people in order to grow and for CEOs of larger organizations to hold onto their job. A little swearing might be good for industry. Business leaders who are going to be successful are going to navigate their own path here, and assuming it's a well-worn, obvious pass of the masses misses the actual answer. Charting a course right for the organization's own needs is where leadership is. With earnings season upon us, let's review the performance of the cloud providers, because the cloud infrastructure market is on fire. Synergy Research dug into the progress, and the market reached $50 billion, up 36% over the prior year. Microsoft and Google both grew around 45% for the quarter, and Amazon at about 40%. Amazon has about 33% of the market, Microsoft at 21%, and Google at 10%. Microsoft and Google are the ones growing. Amazon's share has stayed consistent. Tech Isle reporting on the maturity of the SMB market, with 24% of small businesses, 52% of core mid-market firms, and 54% of upper mid-market firms rated as having advanced IT maturity. The headline: SMB is not monolithic. Why do we care? The Tech Isle research delves into understanding that the SMB market isn't a single thing. It's divided up into types of investors in technology, from pre-IT through basic IT to proactively cautious to a full enterprise IT style of investment. Now, couple that with the expanding cloud space. There's so much opportunity here for continued investment, as 24% is not the whole market, and even those with advanced maturity are going to continue to look for new ways to grow. Google has announced they're both redoing the interface to Gmail, but also releasing a free workspace tier that doesn't include email. That new level, Workspace Essential Starter, is everything but docs, sheets, chats, and such. And citing TechCrunch, the plan could be seen as a Trojan horse for IT, as it doesn't require administrative controls. The plan is limited to 25 people, but an unlimited number of teams in an organization can sign up. Now, why do we care? So I noted this and was intrigued, but decided not to cover it until I noted providers discussing it too in this context, and the solutions were entirely focused on preventing signups. And thus why we care. Too much of the focus here is trying to solve a business problem with a technical solution. If you're worried about your users signing up for this, perhaps the solution isn't to block them from doing so, but instead make sure they wouldn't want to do so because they have the approved solutions that work. I've been tracking the IRS's move to use facial recognition. So too has Congress. Late last week, 3 separate letters from U.S. senators on both sides of the aisle asking for answers. One Republican in the House has introduced legislation to ban the IRS from using the technology on taxpayers. And on Monday, the IRS backed off entirely, giving up on that idea and instead focusing on an additional authentication process. And tracking right to repair, seems Congress has noticed that too. 2 new proposed laws were introduced addressing it. The Freedom to Repair Act specifically carves out space from 1998's Digital Millennium Copyright Act. The Right to Equitable and Professional Auto Industry Repair, or Repair Act, would ensure independent repair shops and consumers have access to the same tools and data that dealerships have. This is similar to a law passed in Massachusetts. Congress also debates a larger tech bill focused on competitiveness with China. The House and Senate each have competing versions of the bill focused on scientific research, new technologies, and investments in semiconductors, all to compete with China. Why do we care? That last set of bills gets all the headlines, and I think we care more about the others. The IRS changing gears was fast. I had considered this segment for yesterday's show, and if I'd done so, I'd be doing it again. That should tell us something about the public sentiment around facial recognition and the confusion of not having a national privacy law. Use that insight with your client work. Right to repair's momentum is vital, and this remains positive for those in services. Either offering the service or helping technology investment maintain over time, both are wins. Security researchers at COBOL have released research indicating that there could be a decline in the overall number of attacks, but those victims pay a heavier price. Researchers suggest that the increased risk of law enforcement involvement for attackers thus decreases the pool of cybercriminals because some will decide the potential for being arrested and extradited isn't worth the risk. However, a decrease in the number of attacks would be a positive overall, and it could potentially come with an unwelcome side effect: the cost of ransom demands going up, particularly for more minor, high-profile victims. Perhaps looking for lower-risk space, a new sugarware ransom targets individual computers rather than corporate networks. Discovered by the Walmart security team, this ransomware as a service operation launched in November 2021 and appeared to be explicitly targeting consumers or small businesses. Microsoft released data indicating that only 22% of its Azure Active Directory customers used a multi-factor authentication solution to secure their accounts last year. As a reminder, in August 2019, Microsoft also indicated that customers who enabled MFA for their Microsoft accounts ended up blocking 99.9% of all attacks. The company has also announced changes coming to the use of VBA macros intended to help block malware delivery, starting with version 2203 of Office. They will now be blocked by default. And after much delay, the new Cyber Safety Review Board is now operational as part of the Department of Homeland Security. Their first case is the Log4j bug. Patterned after the National Transportation Safety Board, the 15-member group was formed by executive order last year. Why do we care? Continues to baffle me when I see the data around MFA. There's a tool out there that blocks 99.9% of attacks, and yet it's not used. There's a newly emerging risk calculus for the criminal side of the equation. Note that the activity isn't going away, it's shifting. However, for those in SMB, it's not great news as it's going smaller. That line from individual to micro and small business is pretty blurry, so that's a continued danger area. Let's break out the arrests and political moves into this segment. Russia arrested 6 people yesterday who were allegedly part of a hacking group focused on credit cards. Russian media reports that the arrests came at the request of investigators from the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Russian Federation. Bleeping Computer reported this, and while Russian law enforcement has not specified which groups, 3 carding forums related to credit card theft displayed seizure notices from the Russian government. And discovered within the code for the seizures notices is a hidden message in Russian, which translates to, "Which of you is next?" It's not all good news from Russian moves. Research published last Thursday shows a series of cyber attacks on Ukrainian institutions appear to be a hacking activity associated with the Russian government. The researchers clarify that it's not a direct tie, but more a broad analysis. Microsoft, however, also released details of actors aligned with the Russian FSB targeting the Ukraine government. Since October, it says the hacking group, which it calls Acnium, has targeted or compromised accounts at Ukraine emergency response organizations. Acnium hackers also targeted organizations that would coordinate international and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Proofpoint released research showing a Palestinian-aligned hacking group has targeted Middle Eastern governments, foreign policy think tanks, and a state-affiliated airline with a new malware implant as part of highly targeted intelligence collection campaigns. Now, why do we care? In the last story segment, I talked about the changing calculus, and here it is again. A mixed story out of Russia, it seems. Some crime won't be permitted, while others used as a political weapon, most certainly. Those two aren't necessarily distinct either, as crime can be part of the political pressures. It's clear that cyber is a space of warfare, and it should be described as such. So, let's talk about trouble tickets. New research from NetScout gives us some insights into the impact of video conferencing on IT professionals. Quoting liberally from Tech Republic. According to NetScout's findings, 72% of those polled said their businesses supported anywhere from 3 to 9 virtual collaboration tools, and 20% said their companies use more than 10 of these platforms. And it seems no one likes them. Microsoft Teams had just 67% of respondents recommending the platform, Zoom at 60%, and WebEx and Slack were even lower. Only Google Meet, at 48% usage and 52% recommendation rate, came in with a net positive score. And a lot has to do with IT issues. Of those polled, 24% said they received tickets multiple times per day about the platforms, while 26% said they received a ticket at least once a day. According to those surveyed, 56% said the tickets were resolved within a few hours, and just 4% of tickets submitted took longer than a day to resolve. The problem for IT professionals has been the volume of tickets submitted, as 36% of respondents said their organization receives more than 2,500 tickets daily. In comparison, 12% said their organization receives more than 5,000 tickets daily. Top issues: configuring devices at 48%, sharing screens for collaborative purposes 44%, system updates and maintenance 43%, poor webcam or video quality 37%, problems with joining video or audio conferences at 37%, audio quality issues 31%, and login problems 31%. Why do we care? IT providers love talking about trouble ticket data, and when there is actual concrete data, I'm happy to supply it. I'm struck by two things here. First, supporting these tools isn't necessarily easy, and they aren't beloved. They are necessary, and leadership understands that, but they aren't set it and forget it. Second, was this increase in IT load factored in by most organizations into their use of the tools? Considering how fast the uptake was due to the pandemic, it's logical to assume the answer is no. That leads to the conclusion: savvy IT leaders are engaging their organizations and customers to incorporate the actual costs of the tools into their plans. I'm convinced that's still a win for most organizations, but it doesn't happen without planning. When it comes to delivering cybersecurity services to your clients, there's a lot to consider, and even more at stake. Firewalls and antivirus don't provide enough protection anymore, and adding more tools to an already complex tech stack is expensive and difficult to manage. The Field Effect Partner Momentum program, together with their award-winning security portfolio, solve these issues by making it easier for MSPs to deliver complete cybersecurity protection, unlock new revenue streams, simplify operations, and stand out from the competition. Learn more and connect with the Field Effect team today by visiting fieldeffect.com/MSP Radio. In the I can't believe these stats department, Micro Focus commissioned a report looking at COBOL usage. Yes, COBOL. This year's results of the apparently annual survey show COBOL use has increased, and points to continued increases, with half of the survey respondents expecting to use more. 92% of respondents stated that their organization's COBOL applications are strategic with future IT strategy and application portfolio alignment. Modernization of COBOL applications is the preferred path forward, as opposed to a rip-and-replace approach. 64% of respondents intend to modernize their COBOL applications, and 72% of respondents see modernization as an overall business strategy. When asked about their company's plans for COBOL in the cloud in 2021, 43% of the survey's respondents stated that their COBOL applications do and will support the cloud by the end of the year. In addition, 41% noted that new business projects require integration with existing COBOL systems. Why do we care? Were you expecting COBOL to be viewed as strategic? Because I wasn't. So modernization of those systems is the approach, and all of this screams of specialized opportunity. Hard things make good money. Now, are we producing enough COBOL programmers for this? I do wonder. Let COBOL and the cloud sink in there too. Organizations will be pulling forward and investing in those legacy applications and cloud enabling them, and 43% are doing it for the year. Cloud as inevitable is the message. Business Insider is reporting that Google is trying to salvage its Stadia game streaming service under the new name Google Stream. The company has deprioritized Stadia and is now focused on trying to sell the service to other companies. Google has inked a deal with Peloton for back-end streaming, Bungie for streaming, and AT&T to offer Batman Arkham Knight in web browsers. This white-label solution is being made available to other technology companies. Why do we care? I previously said my interest in this space is around the idea of using the technology to stream applications. Google's pivot to deliver the technology as a service is why I care about this. It's one step closer to that option. They aren't alone in this capability. Microsoft's cloud gaming is a similar service, and it's a lot less difficult to see the connection between Microsoft's Azure business and the application of this technology. And in another round of follow-ups, let's update on stories I've previously covered. Apple has officially announced that Tap to Pay feature on iPhone. Coming later this year, businesses can use their iPhones to accept Apple Pay with a single tap. The feature will also work for contactless credit cards and debit cards and other digital wallets. The company is also opening up the platform and allowing app developers and other payment platforms to use it too, and Stripe will be the first third party to leverage it. ID.me, the company at the heart of the IRS facial recognition scandal, announced that it would make facial recognition verification optional for all of its public sector government partners. Additionally, starting March 1st, the company says all ID.me users will be able to delete their face scans. Amazon has announced its virtual healthcare program. Amazon Care is now available nationwide. According to a blog post, the hybrid service, which pairs virtual care with the option for an in-home nurse's visit, will be available in 20 additional cities in 2022. That in-person component is already up and running in 8 cities, including Seattle and Los Angeles. Why do we care? Tactical catch-ups here. Retail-focused providers will care about potential shifts in point-of-sale options from Apple, and healthcare-focused ones will be interested in Amazon's continued push into healthcare. When you get that big, only big industries will satisfy the need to grow, and why Apple and Amazon are pushing. Facial recognition isn't popular. Note that. In research from executive search firm Russell Reynolds Associates, Black tech workers moved employers every 3.5 years to advance, compared to an average of 5.2 years for non-Black tech workers. Quoting extensively from CIO Dive. The tenure difference was more pronounced in workers with less than 10 years of experience, with Black workers leaving after an average of 2 years, compared to an average of 4.5 years for non-Black workers. Early career Black tech talent may have less insight into the practical considerations of moving up the ladder, Russell Reynolds said, particularly with respect to networking. That can be seen in the larger market. Pulling from Hired's 2021 Impact Report, Black respondents with 10 to 20 years of experience in the industry cited higher dissatisfaction with employers' performance evaluation process compared to their non-Black peers. And, according to Russell Reynolds, that translated to even more negative experiences for Black respondents. Only 29% of Black talent with 10 to 20 years of tech experience were satisfied with the equality of their pay and organizational recognition, compared to 47% of non-Black talent. White employees received a salary increase after surfacing a discrepancy 28% of the time. Black and Hispanic employees received increases 20 and 15% of the time, respectively. Russell Reynolds found that Black tech professionals with more than 20 years of experience were more likely to miss out on key experiences that would help them advance their careers. While 88% of non-Black tech workers with more than 20 years of experience had led major company initiatives, 61% of Black tech workers with equivalent experience said the same. Why do we care? In a hard labor market, companies reap what they sow. I continue to highlight these stories because when labor is so tight, the industry should be looking for ways to compete and keep employees. Here, the right thing to do and the savvy thing to do align. Axios is reporting on the bounce back of advanced economies. It's far, far faster than the 2008 financial crisis. Moody's released data graphing the recovery, with Canada and Australia above their Q1 2020 positions, Europe and the UK nearly there, and the US and Japan just slightly behind. The lagging US is attributed to lingering COVID worries, while the UK and Euro area are ahead based on their approach, using fiscal relief to keep workers attached to the job market, instead of paying unemployment benefits to workers. And in another Axios piece, it appears salaries and benefits are going up to keep workers. Apple is reportedly paying $180,000 in stock to retain top employees, while Amazon, as previously reported, is more than doubling max base pay to $350,000. Also, the investment banks have issued some of the largest bonus payouts in a decade. Delving further into the Apple news, even their retail employees are getting more benefits, including doubling paid sick days, adding vacation days, and options for emergency backup care for children or elderly family members, even for part-time employees. In that context, Protocol is reporting on pandemic parenting gaps. Recruiters are reporting this new career gap due to the pandemic, and how the stigma of a career gap in general is fading. 79% of hiring managers today say they would hire a candidate with a career gap on their resume. Why do we care? This is the state of play. I'm particularly intrigued by this shift on reading career experience. With the Great Resignation attributed to changing priorities outside of work, it's encouraging to see employers accept what was generally considered non-traditional or even unattractive. Then again, scarcity may be at play too. Savvy owners, employers, and managers are considering these factors on their own retention plays. Now, to look IT specific, Gartner has released new research around cloud usage and highlighted how cloud spending will overtake spending on traditional IT solutions in 2025. The research firm's Cloud Shift Research focuses only on enterprise IT that can transition to the cloud, including application software, infrastructure, business process services, and system infrastructure. Quoting Commercial Integrator, in about 3 years, 51% of IT spending in those 4 categories will have shifted from traditional solutions to the public cloud, compared to 41% this year. A large part of cloud spending will be on application software, with about 66% of spending on that technology directed toward the cloud. That's up from 57.7% this year, according to Gartner. This year, traditional on-premises offerings will make up 58.7% of the addressable revenue, but growth in traditional markets will be much lower than in the cloud. Separately, a survey from IDG focused on digital transformation highlights that the tech behind it may not be ready. 89% of IT executives admit that existing infrastructure, operations, and culture constrain innovation and strategic business growth. At least half of the survey group, 49%, say their IT infrastructure inhibits business growth to a great extent. 87% indicate that the working relationship between developers and traditional IT is hindering their ability to take full advantage of digital transformation. It appears not a whole lot is being done yet to address this. Just 20% are in progress with implementing platform teams that collaborate with DevSecOps or Agile teams. And tech alone doesn't unlock success. In research from Infosys Knowledge Institute, having digital technologies alone isn't enough to meet business objectives and drive profits. Instead, IT must move beyond traditional IT metrics. As digital adoption rates soared during the pandemic, the study also indicated a point of diminishing returns for companies with high levels of adoption. Companies with above-average adoption rates generated slightly less profit growth than those with lower adoption, while those with average rates generated the most. The study data suggests that mere adoption is not enough. What matters more is the effectiveness with which companies use their technology. Why do we care? I won't lead with the cloud is coming. I've said that too often recently. Instead, that last research study. Having technology alone isn't enough, it has to be made effective. The positive to that is that this is a huge opportunity for those who focus there. The negative is that many IT providers have gotten by just keeping the lights on. And the data says that simply isn't enough anymore. The data tends to be a bit obvious in the direction when put together this way. It's not to say it's easy, but the direction feels very clear. Thanks for tuning in to This Week in the Business of Tech. Shows come out each week, pulling together the daily podcast. If you like this show, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. The content here is possible because of supporters like you. If you want access to shows early, answers to your questions, and private interactions, join our Patreon. It's pay what you want. You decide what the content is worth. Join at patreon.com/MSPradio. Patreons also get access to the written versions of every story as they come out. If you want the stories right away, you can get them on the daily podcast. Find The Business of Tech on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows. Subscribe links at businessof.tech, and I'll talk to you again next week.